Hello, beautiful magnetic wives, and welcome to this video about how to build emotional intimacy in marriage. These are 7 proven steps for wives. So if you're new here, my name is Laura Amador, and I'm a Laura Doyle certified relationship coach and intimacy skills expert. And I am excited to talk to you about this because I feel like this is one of the questions that so many women have that bring them to the skills or how they end up finding my blog or finding me in the first place. So, over the years, I've heard countless wives describe the same heartbreaking moment, which is, something like them sitting across from their husbands. Maybe they're at the dinner table or in the living room and just realizing how lonely they're feeling, even while sitting right next to the man that they married. I remember when a woman that I'll just call Maria shared with me her moment of painful realization that her marriage felt dead. Maria was at the dinner table across from her husband. The kids were chattering, the TV was humming in the background, and she felt completely alone. She could not think of a single thing to say to her husband to start a real conversation or to feel in any way connected to him. She longed for deep conversations, for laughter, or even just a warm glance that said, I see you. But the harder she tried to pull him in closer by asking questions or suggesting date nights, nudging him to talk, the more he seemed to retreat. Maybe you can relate. If you ever felt lonely in your marriage, you're not alone. Many wives quietly ache for deeper connection with their husband. And here's the good news: emotional intimacy is not something that your husband either gives or withholds. It's something that you can invite into your marriage when you focus on what you can control. As a relationship coach for wives, I teach that intimacy doesn't come from fixing your husband or convincing him to change. Instead, it starts with small yet powerful shifts in your own actions that can create powerful waves of change in your relationship. So let's get into it. Here are 7 proven steps that you can begin practicing today to build emotional intimacy in your marriage. The first is to drop the pressure and create safety. Every evening after work, Angela would corner her husband with questions. Why don't you ever open up to me? Why don't you tell me how you feel? And she'd ask this with her arms folded and searching his face for answers. Her longing was real. This is so relatable, right? She desperately wanted to connect, but the more that she pressed, the more he pulled away. He retreated to his phone or disappeared into the garage, and Angela felt even lonelier than before. So one evening, she tried something different. Instead of interrogating him, she simply sat next to him, rested her hand on his arm, and shared about her own day. No pressure, no expectations, just a simple moment of vulnerability and openness. At first, nothing really seemed different. It felt kind of like she was talking to a wall. But over the next few days, she noticed that his guard began to lower. He cracked a joke. He asked her a small question, and eventually, the conversations that she'd longed for had begun to return. Not because she was demanding them or, pulling teeth, trying to get him to open up, but because she created a safe space for them to grow. So, the lesson from this one is that emotional intimacy flourishes where there is safety. When pressure is removed, connection becomes possible again. And pressure can look like leading questions, control, expectations, right? Any of those things. You don't have to force closeness, instead, you can invite it. Your tone, your openness, and the way that you show up can transform everyday moments from tense to tender. The second way is by practicing authentic vulnerability. So consider this. You never talk to me feels like blame, right? I miss talking to you feels like vulnerability. Which one makes it easier for a husband to lean into? For a long time, Tasha found herself disguising her longing as complaints. You never talked to me came out of a more, it came out a lot more often than she really realized. While her feelings were genuine, the words sounded like a criticism or blame. And instead of drawing her husband closer, they often caused him to retreat more. So one evening, she decided to try something different. So instead of framing her longing as a criticism, she softened her approach and sitting beside him, she whispered, I love when you look at me across the room. It makes me feel really special. The effect was subtle but powerful. He smiled, drew her close, and kissed her on the forehead. That small moment of authentic connection opened the door for more conversations and tenderness in the days that follow. Vulnerability can sound like something as simple as, I miss you. Vulnerability is magnetic. It can feel risky because it involves exposing your heart, but it invites closeness. And actually, it's really the only way to experience emotional intimacy. If you want intimacy, it it's through the door of vulnerability that we get it, right? As Laura Doyle says, we can only be intimate with our husbands to the degree that we can be vulnerable. You control your willingness to express your true feelings and desires without trying to predict or manage his response. By showing up authentically, you create space for intimacy to flourish. Point number 3 is to choose respect over criticism. Respect is like oxygen to a husband. Criticism suffocates intimacy. Now, I know that this can sound true, and I know for me, for a long time, I was convinced I already am respectful. I don't swear, I don't raise my voice. I am a respectful person. But what I didn't realize is that actually I was not understanding that respect looked different for my husband than it did of what I pictured and imagined respect to be. So I'll share with you a quick story just to depict what this can look like. For years, Sarah found herself correcting her husband constantly. How he would load the dishwasher, how he handled the kids, even how he worded a simple text. She thought that she was helping or making things easier for him or just being honest, but what she didn't realize was that all of these corrections were creating distance. He began to feel dismissed and emotionally shut down. So Sarah decided to try a different approach, and she focused on letting him do things his own way and consciously praised the efforts that he was making. So she would stop criticizing, basically, right? So, not criticizing is the respect piece, but what she replaced the criticism and the disrespect with was with gratitude. So, she started saying, Thank you for taking out the trash today. I really appreciated that. She said that noticing the small wins instead of the mistakes or things that she didn't like made such a huge difference, and the effect was immediate. He lit up, he started joking with her again, he sat closer to her on the couch, and even started initiating conversations. That simple shift in her focus and tone began to transform the way that they connected day to day. Respect opens the door to intimacy in a way that criticism never can. By noticing and appreciating what's working, you invite your husband to lean in rather than pull away. You cannot control him, but you can choose to focus on what he does right instead of what you wish he did differently. Each act of respect and gratitude creates a safe, inviting space for connection to grow. The next one is to be the goddess of fun in life again. So think back to when you and your husband first started dating. Chances are that you weren't sitting across from him and analyzing your emotional connection or strategizing about the future of your marriage. You were laughing, you were joking, sharing little adventures, and just enjoying each other's company. Over the years, Maya had become so focused on working on the marriage and fixing their problems and improving conversation and planning serious talks that she forgot how much joy and laughter had bonded them in the first place. So she pulled back, she pulled out a deck of cards after dinner one day and challenged her husband to a game. When she won, she did a little playful victory dance, and he laughed so hard that he nearly spilled his drink. That night didn't magically solve every challenge in their marriage, but it sparked something important, a sense of lightness and connection. The laughter and playfulness that returned in the moment began to ripple into other areas in their relationship. Small conversations became warmer and lighter, shared moments felt easier, and the emotional space between them felt a little softer. Fun is not frivolous. It's a powerful shortcut to emotional intimacy. Joy and laughter help your husband to, well, they create a safe space, right? They can show that he is seen and open up space for connection for both of you. And they remind both of you why you fell in love in the first place. You can't control his mood, but you can choose to bring play, lightness, and humor back into your marriage. Even small moments like a game, a joke, or a silly dance can create openings for deeper connection. Number five, I already touched on this a little bit, but it's to express gratitude generously. Elena was exhausted from managing most of the household responsibilities, and this is one I hear all the time. At least that's how it felt to her. But then she started paying closer attention to the things that her husband was doing over the things that he was not doing. So these were small, everyday efforts that had previously gone unnoticed. He took out the trash without being asked, right? He made sure the cars had gas and he worked hard to provide for the family. So instead of focusing on what he was not doing, she began to express gratitude for the things that he was doing. So she'd say things like, "Thanks for making sure the car is safe for me. That really makes me feel cared for." The effect was subtle at first, but then her husband started to light up and smile more and even started looking for small ways to make her happy. And what seems like ordinary tasks that, an adult should do anyways, but they suddenly became moments of connection. Gratitude doesn't just make your husband feel appreciated, it shifts your focus. It transforms the atmosphere in your home and invites more warmth and closeness into your marriage. You you can't control what he does and doesn't do, but you can choose what you notice and how you respond to it, and therefore invite more of that. You can light up his hero gene, and you can set a new culture in the relationship where you get to feel more appreciated as well. Each expression of gratitude is like a small spark that can light up your relationship, creating ripples of connection that benefit both of you. Number six is taking care of your own happiness. Here's the truth. I've learned from my own marriage and from coaching countless other wives that nothing is more magnetic and attractive than a woman who glows with her own joy. For years, I found myself waiting for my husband to make me happy. I thought that if he would just notice me more, be more affectionate, or initiate more connection, then I would feel fulfilled. But the truth was that mindset left me feeling disappointed, frustrated, and often lonely. I realized that something had to change. I began reconnecting with the things that had always brought me joy, the hobbies, the quiet moments, and the simple pleasures that made me feel alive before my marriage. For me, that included having a creative outlet and writing and being out in nature and hanging out with friends. These are things that I'd loved but had slipped away over the years. As I re-engaged with my passions, something beautiful happened. I laughed more, smiled more, and carried a renewed energy into my marriage. My husband definitely noticed. He started asking about my day and seeking moments to be near me and wanting to spend more time together. My happiness didn't depend on him. It radiated outward and naturally drew him in. A happy, fulfilled wife is a magnet for intimacy. When you nurture your own joy, it doesn't just benefit you, it strengthens your marriage in ways that you might not expect. You have total control over your own joy, your hobbies, your friendships, and your passions. So fill your cup first and watch how your renewed energy and vitality create opportunities for deeper connection again. And number seven, last but not least, is to believe that intimacy is possible again. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in your marriage is simply choosing to believe that emotional intimacy is possible, even if it feels distant right now. Imagine yourself at a quiet moment in your home, feeling the distance between you and your husband. Maybe it feels like years of missed conversations, missed hugs, missed connection, and that all of this has created a wall that's too high to climb. It's normal to feel discouraged, but the truth is, even small, consistent actions on your part can start planting seeds of hope and spark connection. In my experience, as you practice these little shifts that I mentioned here today, such as expressing gratitude, adding laughter and play, and showing up authentically vulnerable and focusing on your own happiness, you are likely to begin to notice tiny moments of change. Perhaps he smiles more often, asks about your day, or leans in during a conversation. At first, it might just feel like a little tiny flicker, But over time, those flickers grow into a steady light of connection. You have the power to be the spark. When you choose to believe that intimacy is possible, your actions naturally align with that belief. You become the catalyst for closeness and warmth, and transformation that seemed out of reach starts to unfold. Belief precedes reality. When you hold on to hope and act in ways that invite intimacy, you create the conditions for your marriage to thrive. You can't control your husband's feelings, but you can control your mindset. So choose to see the possibilities, notice the small wins, and stay consistent with the practices that nurture connection. Every intentional step that you take is a seed that can grow into a deeper and more fulfilling emotional bond. So let's go back to the first story that I mentioned at the beginning about Maria at the dinner table. She still has noisy kids and a busy husband, but instead of pushing and pressuring, she now focuses on what she can control. Her respect, her gratitude, her vulnerability, and her happiness. And slowly but surely, the loneliness faded. The laughter has returned. The warm glances across the table are back. That's the power of building emotional intimacy in your marriage, not by controlling your husband, but by reclaiming your own power and influence. You don't have to settle for distant, disconnected marriage. When you focus on what you can control, intimacy naturally blossoms. And I'd love to help you take that first step. If you don't have it already, I do have a free guide called The 5 Steps to Reignite Connection in Your Marriage. It will provide you with an exact step-by-step plan that you can start using today to feel closer, more connected, and more loved. So you can find the link for that in the description or at the bottom of the blog post. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.